Thank you for tuning in, and welcome to Night Errant. I'm here with Ronin, who's going to tell us all about his new solar system / guard regiment / everything.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So it turns out I betrayed the Eldar and ended up playing Imperial Guard. I'm sorry. I'm not going to call it Astra Militarum. That's just weird. No, I ended up buying a pre-owned army off someone, two someone's actually. I ended up with a lot of miniatures, and after having watched a lot of Starship Troopers, I figured, yes, mobile infantry, and having Tyranids attack them from everywhere and die horribly in droves, and this is going to be fun.
Yeah. The Imperial Guard is fun. Yes. That's the main feature of a life in the Imperial Guard is fun.
Yes, and dying horribly.
That's fun too.
It is. Heavy casualties are acceptable. Failure isn't. I remember making a Facebook post about so what would look cool, is this colour scheme working? And I was sort of trying to come up with something that worked, because I looked at the Akkadian Infantry on Games Workshop pages and such, and I thought they looked kind of boring with the green and the olive and the
They're just military dudes.
Yeah, they're kind of drab.
Yeah.
So I wanted to try something different, and a friend of mine just ran them through Photoshop and changed the color scheme into like 12 different colors, and came up with something in blue and grey that looked pretty cool. So I ended up looking at this mini and going, yeah, okay, blue armor plates and grey uniforms, that could work. And this looks kind of sweet. I kind of want to paint 50 of these or 100 of these, as the case may be.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, so what would look cool with what would be a good contrasts for this on the base, and came up with this whole blue and teal that all the movie posters are going with. Many movie posters do this, contrasting blue with teal. Yep. Take a look at the Star Wars posters; they do it a lot. So I ended up with sand on the bases and figured, okay, so these guys are amphibious something, you know, D-Day, onto the beach, etc., beachheads and so on. So I came up with this amphibious regiment, and things sort of started snowballing from there. What do you do with this? And I figured that I've been playing with you guys a lot, and the whole backstories of your armies, and I hadn't really been working with the Eldar that I played earlier. So okay, I'm going to make my own planet here, my own backstories, and write some stuff down. And came up with, well, I needed a name for the planet, of course. Yeah. And something to do with the water. So I had a friend mention like different like Babylonian gods that had to do with water and stuff, and looked up lists and so on and so forth. So I ended up with Thalassa, which is a Greek ocean goddess. Okay. I thought that sounded pretty cool.
Yeah. That's very cool.
I think it sort of works.
And sounds like an Imperial planet as well.
It does. And the Thalassan amphibious regiment, and it works as...
So what number is your regiment?
Well. It's the 9th Thalassan amphibious regiment, of course.
It's good to have these things clear.
Yes, this is very important.
Otherwise you wouldn't be able to get in a fight with the 13th Thalassan amphibious regiment.
Over bragging rights of who has shot the most Tyranids. Yeah. Yes, clearly. But then I sort of started filling out the fluff from there, based on what would I be playing against, as in the meta, as they say. What are my friends playing? Yeah. And I do have a Tyranid army living with me these days.
How's that?
Well, my dear friend Nikolai, Nixter, he plays the Tyranid army that I have painted. Yeah. Halfway painted. Still working on that. So I figured that this would be a planet that had some trouble going on with the Tiamat Hive fleet.
Yeah, the Timid High Fleet.
Yes.
But that's pretty spread out, right?
It is, which means they could be pretty much anywhere. They focus on, plopping a couple of gene stealers on board Imperial transports and then, land on a planet and go do their thing, and suddenly you have Tyrians on that planet as well. Works out really well. They're not really into the whole interplanetary mycetic spores attacks from space like Kraken and the other big ones. Yeah. They're more sneaky like that.
Okay.
So I came up with a backstory and came up with this ocean world, a civilized world, Imperial world, which is, well, covered in water, but a couple of continents where these 2.8 billion people live in a fairly civilized society, but they're surrounded on all sides by ocean that wants to kill them in many different ways. So it's a civilized / death world.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So you're pretty good as long as you're on land, but you don't want to go in the water.
No. This got us talking about the whole how do you worship the emperor thing, because I mentioned that to you because
yes.
I always find it interesting to say, in what way is the emperor worshipped on your world? And we came up with something rather nice, I think.
Yes, because we're talking about a planet that has been out of contact with the Empire for an extended period of time, because Wops, Doms, and what have we. So it's joined the Empire around the end of the Dark Age and the Age of Strife and all that, as most of the other planets, as you pointed out.
Yeah.
And then lost contact with them because of Wops, Doms, and things sort of escalated from there, sort of moved in their own direction for a couple of millennia, as they are wont to do.
Yeah.
And then rejoining the Empire after a while. With a couple of noticeable differences. So cultural differences mostly. They down with the idea of the emperor and praise him and all that, but I think they refer to him in different ways.
And as many cultures do, and I think in your case we were considering either being him the water god, or in actually the less you have to do with water, the better, because water is chaos.
Water bad.
Water bad. Water want to kill you.
Yes, and which is why they're concentrated on the whole idea of amphibious warfare, as in be safe as you traverse water, make sure you are in amphibious tanks and stuff like that, otherwise you're going to get eaten, because there's always a bigger fish.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of this specific culture and their own way of doing things, and I'm sort of basing it on 19th century British military.
Yeah.
And this whole, you have officers that are clearly upper class and regular grunt soldiers that are clearly not.
Yeah.
So a very distinct difference between the two classes.
Yeah.
But as for how they revere the emperor, I'm not sure. I mean, they realise that I don't think they see him as a water god. I don't think they're quite at that stage of primitive religion, but I think their culture still means that they look at him in a certain light.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. They're civilized and they're fairly advanced, so they might look at him like. But they're still religious, because everyone in the Imperium is sort of religious. So they might look at him as a sort of like the one who keeps them safe on water, the guiding light. You look towards Terra, as you do in the Warp as well.
Yes.
The guiding light, the Astronomicon also on water. You always have the North Star, the holy light of Terra, guiding you through the murky waters of chaos.
Oh yes.
Could be very nice, I think.
He's their Stella Polaris. I like it.
And through him there is the guiding light of, maybe you have a great lighthouse in some harbor which is called the Light of the Emperor and all that stuff, and it is symbolically lighted by the Viceroy, I think you call the
governor.
Yeah.
Who was the title of Viceroy, yes, because I'm sticking with the whole British vocabulary.
And once a year maybe he goes and lights the holy light of the Emperor.
I like it.
And stuff like that, and that's sort of the point when you're building your own, be it a Necron dynasty or an Imperial Guard regiment or an Eldar craft world or whatever, forge the narrative into it.
Yes.
And there's so much to do.
There is. I feel more creative than I have been for a while. The whole coming up with the backstory and the personalities and notable points in history. What happened when High Fleet Tiamat attacked last? And
the funny thing is that you can guide the tabletop through the narrative, but you can also guide the narrative through the tabletop. Like you said, in my meta, I live with a High Fleet, so I might as well put in some Tiamat aggression, and I want this color scheme for my army, so I come up with the amphibious theme, and then on the other hand, well, I like the colonialisms and stuff like that, so I'll... Not colonialisms, that's the wrong word. That's the wrong word. I'm not a native English speaker. I like the colonial feel for my army.
The aesthetics and the callback to colonial times with the class differences. Not a fan, I would like to point out, but it would be really interesting to represent this in the miniatures.
But that means that... But then that guides what you do on the tabletop.
Yeah.
So there's this back and forth thing going on, which I think is what 40k is all about. Like, the narrative forging the tabletop and the tabletop forging the narrative.
I agree. I think that's a very good point. I played a couple of games with Nixter against Tyranids, and there are a couple of situations, like it's a heroic moment where the leader of the forces just manages to take out a Ravener in close combat or something like that.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you have the story of how this lieutenant became captain after the last one died, as in battlefield promotion because of this heroic deed on the battlefield. And you have these stories that go with your miniatures, which just make it much more real in a way.
It does.
It makes it more personal. It makes it a lot more fun to play, I find. Yes, I felt this disconnect with my Eldar when I played Eldar with the Eldar forces, and I didn't really have like this connection to them, if you can call it that, I suppose.
I get that.
And in this way, when you have the whole backstory, when you come up with like a detailed narrative for where they come from, this officer, well, you know who this officer is, you know what they've done, you know the story behind it. It becomes a much more interesting game somehow. Yeah,
I get that. I feel that disconnect a little sometimes as well with my Necrons, because let's face it, they're soulless warriors, most of them.
And you're not.
I'm not a soulless warrior. Not most of the time, anyway.
Okay.
But also, like, the individuality is limited. Like,
that's very true.
With Necrons.
Yes, but then you came up with Ben Gunn, didn't you?
Ben Goss.
Ben Goss. I'm sorry.
And stuff like that. So you can, like, that was my next point as well. Yeah, you can make these individual narratives and stuff like that. Sometimes it takes a little more work, but it helps. In this case, we had Errant doing an awesome paint job and conversion job on a specific mini.
Yeah.
Which meant that suddenly, this is not just a cryptic.
True.
This is Ben Goss.
Yeah.
He has a narrative all of his own. Let's run with that.
I like that.
So that was a question of just the tabletop, or at least the hobby part, forming the narrative. And then we came up with the idea that I should have my entire own dynasty, and I'm sort of figuring out that like my Imotech is actually a child overlord, or a child pharaoh, who is now in a fully grown body and is 1,000,000 years old, but he's still a child, and he's sort of like petulant and wants shit done and stuff like that, and all that stuff. So that's the thing. Once you get, it's a bit like dominoes. Once you get the first stone rolling, it sort of just takes a life of its own. And that's really cool.
I think I get that. I think the next step in my project is the Kill My Friends project.
Yes, do tell us how you want to kill your friends, and I'll just be moving over here.
Well, I've been doing that with great success while playing XCOM on my PC, and making Facebook posts going, so who wants to be a soldier in the XCOM initiative? And I try to like shape the avatars, I suppose, the soldiers in the game to look like the friends who want to join.
Yeah.
As in, I want to be a sniper. I want to like eye patch and facial scars and try to make that character into something resembling that friend.
Yeah.
And I was thinking I would do the same with my Imperial Guard. As in, were you to join the 9th Lassen Amphibious Regiment,
what would you be?
What would you be? Would you be like a last cannon loader, or would you be a tank commander, or would you be a sniper? Would you be... And what would you look like? As in bandana or helmet or...
Nothing at all.
Something like that. Can I make the different miniatures sort of look like that person and make it even more personal?
That sounds hyper cool, and
It's extremely ambitious, and I'll probably be done like 2028, but it's worth a shot, I think.
It is, and as long as it keeps you motivated, I think that's one of the great points as well. It keeps you motivated to keep working on that regiment. It keeps your interest in that regiment. It keeps your fire going, and that's the most important thing.
I think that's key.
Whatever you can do to keep your fire going for the whole, both playing but also painting, modeling, all that stuff. Whatever you can do to keep that fire going.
And writing fluff.
Writing fluff.
All creativity is good.
Yes. That, and maybe we'll end it there with the words, all creativity is good. Oh yeah, and we forgot to say thank you, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.